Welcome to First Unitarian Society. I am Emily Smith, one of the worship associates at FUS. I am joined today by Drew Collins, Linda Warren, Heather Thorpe, Daniel Carnes, Stephen Gregorius, Becky Burns, Lori Schwartz, Marilee Wertlake, Sandy Eskrich, Connie Beam, and Sue Ellen Hogg will share in today's reflection. We're so glad to have you join us this morning. Though not together here in our beloved meeting house, we remain tied together through the bonds of community and affection. At FUS, we gather to grow our souls, connect with one another, and embody our UU values in our lives, our community, and our world. We warmly invite you to join in the virtual coffee hour immediately after our service. The information for that will be on your screen again after the postlude. We have a special announcement this morning from Leslie Ross, our Children's Religious Education Director.
Hello, my FUS friends. I am here standing in one of my happy places, which is a classroom for our Children's Religious Exploration program, and I'm very excited to be here. Soon we'll be able to welcome back our FUS kids and their teachers so that we can be together again in community, and it's so within reach and it's so exciting. I can't wait to see it happen. Karen and I have been really busy getting all the preparations done so that we can restart our in-person program. We've been updating the curricula, we've been ordering supplies, getting curriculum boxes ready, all kinds of things. But there is one thing that we cannot do, and we need your help with this. We cannot teach much as we would love to. There's just too many classes and too much going on during worship services for us to be able to teach. So we're hoping that you can help us with that. But the truth is we're worried. Right now, teacher recruitment is the most challenging it has been in my 21 years here at First Unitarian Society. In fact, 8 of our 18 classes, which is over a third of our classes, are at risk of being canceled because we don't have enough teachers. This is keeping us up at night. Here's what we need. Ideally, we have a team of 4 teachers for each class. That way, the task of teaching is very manageable for each person. We have had classes with only 3 teachers, and it works, but it does put an extra burden on those teachers. So where things stand right now for our Sunday and our Saturday classes is that any class that is still in need of 2 teachers or more is at risk of being canceled. So on Sunday, that means 3 of our classes, and actually 4 because we have 2 sections of this, are at risk of being canceled. Our preschool class, 2nd and 3rd grade, and our 4th and 5th grade class are at risk of being canceled. Saturday looks a little scarier. We have 5 classes that are at risk of being canceled. Our preschool, 4th and 5th grade, 6th and 7th, 8th grade, which has 0 teachers right now, and our 9th grade class. So we really need our community to rally around this situation. I know that we're all really looking forward to coming together and being in community together again. And I just hope that we can pull together a community for our FUS children as well. They've had a heck of a time during this pandemic, and I just want us to be able to welcome them back with open arms and open hearts, but no hugging and definitely wearing masks, so that we can bring them back into the community that we're all so looking forward to returning to. I hope that we can pull together to bring back this really critical part of our FUS life. We are their spiritual home, and we are all their caretakers, the caretakers of the home that they live in spiritually at FUS. And I know that this is a very strong and generous community, and I hope that we can make this happen for the coming year. Thank you so much, and I really look forward to seeing you. My email address is below. Get in touch, and I will talk to you about how you can best help make this all happen. Thank you.
I invite you now to take a few deep breaths, to be present here together, to bring ourselves fully into this time we share. This past spring, about 30 FUS members, including me, took the Black History for a New Day course offered through Nehemiah as part of their Justified Anger initiative. Each class over the 10 weeks of the course followed a similar structure. It started with a short personal story from Dr. Alex G., which explored how the topics from that class impacted his life and his family's history. Then we'd watch a lecture from a UW History Department faculty member, after which we'd spend about an hour discussing what we heard with each other. Throughout the course, we remarked on how little of the material we learned in school and how powerful it was to hear connections made to the personal experience of those in our Madison community. One of the strongest aspects of the course for me is that it got many of us to see ourselves in the story of racism and racial justice in the United States. Regardless of whether our ancestors lived in the North or the South, or whether our families immigrated more recently to this country, the complex and ongoing relationship between slavery and capitalism mean that we are not bystanders and we are not unimpacted. Perhaps most importantly, the course got us talking to each other. None of us can solve the issues of racial justice on our own, but in community, we can support one another and build a better future together. In today's reflection, you'll hear 6 more people who took the course share about the experience and how it impacted them. I hope you learned something, and I hope it gives you insight into the power of knowledge and community this program fosters. Our opening words this morning come from Christian Schmidt. Let us wake up, not just from the Sunday morning exhaustion, from the wish for a few more drowsy minutes in bed. Let us wake up to this world we live in, to its beauty and wonder, and also to its tragedy and pain. We must wake up to this reality, that not all in our world have what we do, however much or however little that is. We must wake up to the idea that our wholeness, our lives, are only as complete as the lives of those around us, of those we are inextricably tied to in a great web of mutuality, of which all of us are part. We must stay woke, in the words of our friends and colleagues involved in Black Lives Matter, working every day for racial justice in our country. Let us wake up. Let us stay awake. Let us stay woke. And now, in this time and place, let us worship together.
We light our flaming chalice as a beloved people, united in love and thirsting for justice.
May it spark in us a spirit of humility.
May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action.
This is a chalice of audacious hope.
This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals.
Good morning. Let us walk together toward freedom, justice, as we sing our opening hymn, number 1040, Hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Sounds like freedom. Sounds like a freedom. Somebody's calling my name. sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Sounds like justice. It sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. We all gotta work for justice, right? It sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling our name. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, what shall I do? I'm so glad trouble don't last always. Here we go. I'm so glad trouble don't last always. I'm so glad trouble don't last always. I'm so glad trouble don't last always. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do?
Did you know that love is a really big deal in Unitarian Universalism? I bet you did, because we just can't stop talking about it. Love this, side with love of that. Justice is what love looks like in public. We weren't the first ones to say that. Dr. Cornel West was. But we love it so much that we sing it back to him and the universe all the time. There was once a scientist guy who asked all kinds of people, not just Unitarian Universalists, what they thought of love and how important it was for them. His name was Robert Miller. It turns out that of all the groups he studied, whether religious or not, UUs rank love as a core value more so than others do. Another big deal in Unitarian Universalism is our principles. They are a big part of our covenant with each other. When Unitarian Universalism first came into being in 1961, there were only 6 principles. Our 7th principle was proposed in 1985 and added in 1987. One way to imagine our principles was originally suggested by Reverend Barbara Wells Ten Hove. It's called a keystone arch. This is like a doorway through which we enter into what this faith calls us towards. It's kind of cool because the 4th principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, is at the center, holding together the space for us to balance between each individual's inherent worth and the needs of the great community of which we are a part. But do doorways or archways ever exist all by themselves, just floating in air? Not really, right? They are usually stabilized on the ground, a part of a larger building or structure. So maybe there is a principle that is still missing? Just like we figured out 35 years ago when we decided that the 7th principle was missing. Maybe the missing principle is the ground upon which the doorway is built. Maybe it's the whole house of love we are always trying to create for ourselves, each other, and the world. Maybe, if we add an 8th principle, we will get closer to the beloved community we dream about, where there is no oppression of any kind, where we can say Black Lives Matter, but we don't have to, because they already do. I want to be a part of building this house of love. Do you? invite you into this time of giving and receiving, where we give freely and generously to this offering which sustains and strengthens First Unitarian Society and our work in the world. You will see on your screen that you can donate directly from our website, fusmadison.org. You will also see our text to give information there as well. We thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life we create together.
Good morning, I'm Becky Burns.
Hi, I'm Lori Schwartz.
And we took the Black History course and want to share some of our experiences with you today. So we'll start by my asking Lori, what content was most helpful or meaningful for you?
The content of this class, to me, taught me how I thought I knew a lot about African American history, but I really didn't. All the things right here in Madison, right here in Wisconsin, and honestly, all across the world, this class raised my awareness, my knowledge, and it left me understanding that our history that we call U.S. history, it has been edited in a way that leaves, it's not inclusive. And I believe that this class, though they call it Black history, is actually history. It's our history. So Becky, true. What about this class was most impactful or stayed with you?
Yeah, Lori, I really was taken aback when they taught us about the lynchings that occurred. Of course, I have enough history that I knew lynchings occurred, I thought they were kind of out in the deep, dark woods of the South. But what I learned through the course is that actually they happened all over, even here in the North, with one of the most famous ones happening next door in Minnesota. And that they became kind of community events, that churches would close their doors and everybody would flock to go and watch the latest lynching, which just was appalling. And beyond that, it even got worse because people would take photographs and those photos would turn into postcards that they would send to their friends and families. And when you look at those images, I don't know, I thought the folks looked like they were standing around at a farmer's market or maybe concerts on the square. They weren't aghast as I would have been. It just seemed like an everyday community event that people were smiling and enjoying being out and about together. And it really turned my stomach and gave me an eye-opening experience about what those lynchings were really all about.
Yeah.
By the way, Lori, where are you right now?
I'm at Wright Middle School. This is actually where my daughter Giselle went to middle school. It's named after the Reverend Wright, who is our own African-American icon in Madison. And this is the only school that my daughter went to where she got to be the majority and experience the only time in her life being in the majority in our society.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that.
And how about you and your background?
Yeah. Well, I thought it'd be fun to just share the Black Lives Matter logo with everyone here today, just as we have as our sign on our FUS lawn there at the church. What stayed with you the most following the Black History course?
You know, Becky, I felt a bit isolated and honestly angry at times. Alex G. talked about justified anger. And I felt like this class gave me an opportunity to learn about why I was angry, but more importantly, to not be isolated. I feel like I got an opportunity to learn myself because I need to as a privileged white person, but to also understand the many things that made me angry about having biracial children and watching what was occurring and not being able to do anything many times to help it. And so what stayed with me is that I now have a group of people that I can have very real conversations with and that I can go to when I'm sad and I need support and help rather than be angry.
That's awesome. That's totally awesome.
And Becky, what stayed with you, or what's a lasting impact of the class for you?
Yeah, thank you, Lori. I think it came the day that we had a chance to talk, just the FUS folks got a chance to talk with Dr. G, and someone asked, or somehow it came through about like, what does he need from us now that we've taken his course and we've become educated? You know, how do we take this forward in the world? And he really spoke to this need for white folks to educate other white folks. And that, at that time, for me, caught me off guard. I thought I'm going to go out and I'm going to join with my Black brothers and sisters and support them. And that like landed me back in my seat to think a little bit about that. And I really do value his words. And as the co-lead of the racial justice ministry team at FUS, as well as in my work and other parts of my life, I'm really going to kind of keep this front in mind. Just recently, a Black colleague of mine was sharing a brief overview of the Black history. She was talking about historical trauma. And she mentioned that the toll it takes on her personally every time she has to talk about it. And we just don't need to be putting people in that position of reliving the harm that's been enacted on their ancestors for centuries. It's really time for us as white folks to carry that load and educate our white brothers and sisters about racism and to become the change that we want to see in the world.
Thank you so much, Becky. I value and appreciate you as an ally.
Same here. Take care.
So hi, Sandy.
Hey, Marlene.
This is a totally natural situation. Sandy and I were in different facilitation groups for the Black History for a New Day class. And so while we had the same material, we had somewhat different experiences in terms of the discussion groups because they had different characters, because they had different people.
Right.
So we had a variety of questions that we could sort of use to get started, and I thought the two that's I wanted to start with was something like, what was most striking about the class that you are still reflecting on today, or what impact has a class had on you over time? Not to put you on the spot.
No, it's a good place to start because that I am reminded of not just the content of the class, which was focused on Black American history, but also the interaction of the people in the class. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I can read books, I can follow blogs, I can do a lot of self-learning about American history and American Black history, but and when I do that, it is only integrated with my own life experience and my own memories and my own worldview. But when we were on the class and I got to hear that same piece of information, how it resonated with others in the class, and whether that was someone who had 10 or 20 years of life experience on me, whether it was someone who had been in high school in the last 10 years. I mean, we got to really hear how some of that history happened for those of us who lived through some of that history, and then also how we today take in that and try to integrate it with the cultural experiences that we live and that we navigate now.
I was curious, you had two younger than our age people in your group, and we did not. So I was wondering, did you feel like that youth added a different inflection point or viewpoint?
I mean, often I think we put our young people on the spot. Often. Yes. So we would talk about what's taught in U.S. history. And we'd say, well, hey, what was taught in the last 8 years at West High School? There's only one person who's going to answer that. So, so I was really appreciative that they were part of that narrative. But I also thought it was interesting to hear the other members of the group and where they grew up. As it turned out, several of us grew up in Iowa. I don't know how that happened, but we ended up a bunch of women from Iowa. And but there were others who grew up in other parts of our country. And also people who grew up in very small towns and rural areas, and then those of us who grew up in larger cities and had perhaps more exposure to racial differences as we grew up. It was really helpful to me to be able to hear, and as we've said before, the people in this class, because we are all FUS members, I probably knew more than half of them when the class started. So we all walk in with a preconceived idea of the people we know and who they are and what their life experience is. So it was so much fun and enlightening to hear other stories that we haven't talked about, because we don't talk about our experience with race in America very easily.
I found, I lived in Maryland for part of my life from ages 5 to 10, and I found the class had me reflecting on some things that we used to go to restaurants after church, and I realized in retrospect that some of those were old plantations, which really staggered me to realize, and my lens changed on how I look at that remembrance now. I've called this class Black History, remedial Black History for white people at times, joking, but it's not just Black history because it's really our history. We want to set it aside and say, well, but it was our experience as a country, which I think is important to realize.
And as we lived through it, and our families lived through it, I think even about my parents, who obviously lived through it generationally differently than I did. And what sort of choices did that make? Did they make? What sort of awareness did they have about the cultural factors and the cultural forces as they lived through those in the 40s and 50s and 60s? I don't know.
We also were in D.C. when Martin Luther King spoke in D.C. For the famous talk about "I Had a Dream," and that was something my family did watch and shared. And so, although I don't remember them commenting about it, just more that it was there as an experience to have. I've taken this class 3.5 times. One time I had to stop at midway, but I was a facilitator for 2 of those times, and once for people I didn't know and once for people I knew from FUS, and I found that to be a very different experience because there was a certain freedom in not knowing people, but then when I did it for the group of people from FUS, I knew most of the people in the class, and I was concerned about performance, or was I doing this right, or was I going to sound like not very smart, or those are sort of my own personal things. And yet I think there is something to, probably everyone had some of those feelings when you're in a group of people that you know and you know you're going to see again in 3 months. But I guess I wanted to say that I felt like in some ways in the end it was a more valuable experience doing it with the folks from FUS because one, we looked at it, we asked different questions about spirituality and how it related to our faith and the 7 principles, and I see fighting racism as an important part of the 7 principles. But I also realized that I could go to those people now, or I could go to people in the other group and have a shared language and understanding of what we were talking about when we talk about fighting racism or injustice, and that I really am, it made me feel closer in my community at FUS, and it made me feel like there were future possibilities for shared work together. And that's one of the reasons why I really encourage people to take the class.
I agree. I think taking it together with individuals that we have a long-term commitment with probably causes me to be reminded of the content and my intentions, and causes me to actually act on them. If I see or hear something in our congregation and in our groups, broadly at church, I think I feel a little bit more responsibility to question those words or those actions, and feel as though I'm not in left field, coming from left field in asking those questions, because I think there is a cadre now of people who have taken the course, and hopefully others will take the course, to have sort of a shared experience and intention and willingness to have difficult conversations with each other and in our community.
One of the reasons I took the class a number of times, maybe I'm a slow learner, but I learned something new each time, and it's the teachers are always evolving who are teaching the material. So there's you cover the same material, but now you have there's new facts, or there's new ways of looking at it or interpreting it, which I really valued that the class was growing along with us. I think for me, the thing that has stood out the most was I used to have difficulty understanding institutional racism or structural racism, and I could see the big overt things, but I had a hard time seeing sort of the finer, I think of it as tree roots almost, and I now see how so much of our government, our history, our laws, our education, all of these different have all been affected by racism, and that it's almost like a rigged game. And It is a rigged game. It's not like a rigged game. And how do we change that? And that, for me, that's been the most impactful, is really understanding that there's so many levels to racism and how much it affects people's ability to proceed in life.
Mm-hmm. Right, and the wealth discrepancy that is so prevalent. Yeah. So many of the details of the course offered us glimpses, centuries ago that fed where we are today.
Mm-hmm. I can't think of anything else right at the moment. Is there anything else about why others should take the class, why you would encourage them, or how spirituality comes into the discussion of Black history?
I think that it helped that the course is involved in learning and lecture, and then a extended period of discussion. And it's during that extended period of discussion when I think we had the opportunity to say, how do we at FUS understand this, and what actions have we taken or are we taking to live our principles in regard to the inequities of our community?
This is maybe muddying the water or taking it a step further, but there's discussion at the UUA about an 8th principle maybe being added at some point, and it has to do with dismantling racism. And I thought I would just read that and plant a seed here about the 8th principle. And so the principle reads as, we, the member congregations of the UUA, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. And we're going to be hearing more about the 8th principle in the next few years.
Right. So. Yeah, this class is a prime example of opportunity to journey together.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Connie Beam, and I'm joined today by Sue Haug. Sue and I want to share with you some of the information that the Black History for a New Day course that was either new to us or that we found particularly impactful to our understanding of the history of Black people in the U.S. So Sue, what's something about our nation's history that you didn't know until you took this course?
Yeah, Connie, I was really struck by the ways in which the North was complicit and benefited from slavery. You know, a girl from the North, it was easy to be maybe a little naive about this, but I'll just give a few examples of the ways in which the North benefited. Fishermen, for example, sold their catch to plantations in the Caribbean, and in return, they received molasses, which they turned into rum, a very valuable export. The textile mills, of course, depended on cotton from the South, but the cotton gin just increased demand for that cotton to the point that more and more land was being cultivated for cotton and more slaves were required. And as the slave trade increased, that in turn led to the development of an insurance industry in the North to help insure this very valuable cargo from Africa. So while many in the North didn't own slaves, and we may feel somewhat removed from this slavery enterprise, in fact, the wealth of this country, North and South, was built on the backs of enslaved people. And this, in turn, I think really helped us as we discussed the increasing wealth gap and the need for reparations. So Connie, what about you? What impacted you?
Well, the presentation by Leleda G was very impactful for me. She's an artist, a speaker, and she hosts a podcast called defending Black girlhood. And she's also the founder of a nonprofit called Black Woman Heal. She started her presentation with the fact that every Black girl who descends from a slave carries the generational trauma of sexual abuse. Not all of what she shared was news to me, but the in-depth explanations and the statistics were quite astounding and really tough to hear. A few examples: sexual assault of enslaved Black women was an economic investment, and some were used as breeders. We haven't dealt with the residuals of the generational trauma of sexual abuse. And today, 65% of all Black women will be sexually abused before the age of 18. Mothers who don't heal can't help their daughters. They're trapped into the cycle of self-abuse. I've been a feminist all my life, and I often get frustrated with women who don't speak up for themselves. But Leleda taught me about the incredibly difficult world that Black girls and women inhabit, and that empathy is just as important as education. So in addition to the lectures, we both found Reverend Alex G's introductions to each lecture to be very meaningful. So Sue, can you talk a little bit about how his introductions impacted you?
Right. Every week he would kind of bring home what it was like to be a Black man growing up in Madison, Wisconsin, and raising his family here. And so that was really, those stories were really important and impactful. But one comment he made that really has stuck with me, and that was, don't, as an outcome for white people taking this course, he hopes that we don't just run out and think about how we might save some poor Black child, but rather that we think deeply about how we talk to our own children and grandchildren differently. And that led us to really interesting conversations about both our personal actions and how we, as members of FUS, hope to see our congregation moving forward in anti-racist work. So Connie, how about you?
Well, throughout the course, Reverend G repeatedly referred to three things that white people can do, or allies can do, to help bring justice and equality to Black people. And the three things are to educate yourself, to donate to Black-led organizations, and then to affiliate with those organizations. So educate, donate, affiliate. It's a simple recipe for both for us as individuals and as a religious institution. So personally, I'm continuing to pursue some of those opportunities. And at FUS, our racial justice ministry team is working to bring to our congregation opportunities to educate, donate, and affiliate. And I'm just so really grateful to Reverend G and all the presenters for the Black History for a New Day course, for giving white people a pathway to begin to truly understand the ramifications of our racist country and how to support Black folks. It's necessary work that we all need to do to live our UU principles.
I invite you now to join in a few moments of silent meditation and prayer. During this time, I invite you to contemplate in particular the joys and concerns on your heart and mind today. Amen, and blessed be.
There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we lost. There is a love holding all we rest in this holy love. We rest in this holy love. We rest in this love.
Please rise in body and or spirit to sing with me hymn number 1007. There's a river flowing in my soul, heart, and mind. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul, flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart, in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I am somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing there's a river flowing in my soul.
Go in hope, for the arc of the universe is long, and we can bend it toward justice. Go in courage, for together we have the strength to confront injustice in our daily lives and the larger world. Go in love, because a holy and generous love is both the reason and the means by which we transform our lives.
Thank you.